First story. My religious family tried to bribe me to change my wedding date. Now I'm wondering if they should even be invited to the reception. Planning a wedding is supposed to be one of the most exciting times in your life. But for me, it's been a minefield of conflict, guilt, and unsolicited opinions from my family. My fiancé and I have been together for 5 years and engaged for 3. Like many couples, we've had to juggle our dream wedding plans with financial responsibilities, which meant postponing our big day more than once. Finally, we set a date, June 2025. It felt like a victory until my family turned it into a battleground. Let me explain. I grew up in an extremely religious household. My family's beliefs govern every aspect of their lives, from how they dress to how they spend their weekends. Jewelry, strapless dresses, dancing, music, and alcohol are all forbidden. Even something as simple as a father-daughter dance is considered worldly and inappropriate. For as long as I can remember, my life was measured against these strict standards. But when I turned 18, I made the decision to leave the religion. Since then, I've tried to walk the tightrope of maintaining some connection with my family while staying true to my own values. It's a delicate balance, and honestly, it's exhausting. When we finally found the perfect venue for our wedding, I knew we couldn't risk losing it. Venues in our area book up quickly, and the date that worked best for us and most of our guests happened to fall on a Saturday. Unfortunately, Saturday is considered a sacred day of rest in my family's religion, and I knew this would be an issue. Still, I hoped they might make an exception just this once. After all, it's my wedding. I went out of my way to accommodate them as much as I could. I scheduled everything to ensure the ceremony would be early enough that they could attend and still leave before the reception, which I knew they'd find offensive. I even paid extra to reserve the venue on Sunday for cleanup so that everyone could have a stress-free return to work on Monday. My fiancé and I are covering all the wedding expenses ourselves, and while it's a financial strain, we've been determined to create a day that reflects our love and the life we've built together. Despite all this, the pushback from my family was immediate. My sisters made snide remarks about how I was disrespecting their beliefs. One sister, in particular, went out of her way to guilt-trip me, suggesting that I was putting my wedding above my family's values. It hurt, but I tried to brush it off. I thought we'd reached some sort of understanding, until the invitations went out. That's when my father texted me, asking, "Is there any way you could change the date to Sunday?" His tone was casual, almost as if he were asking me to reschedule a coffee date, not the event my fiancé and I had been planning for years. I responded politely, but firmly, saying, "I'm sorry, but no." His reply stunned me. Even for $2,000? At first I was furious. It felt like a bribe, as if he was trying to buy his way into controlling one of the most important days of my life. Worse, it showed me that he could help us financially, but chose to dangle that assistance like a carrot, only if I aligned with his wishes. My fiancé and I have been scraping by to make this wedding happen, and while $2,000 would be a huge help, the principle of the matter made it impossible for me to accept. After cooling down, I decided to respond diplomatically. I explained that the venue had already been booked and paid for, making a date change impossible. I also told him that I understood their beliefs and didn't expect them to participate in activities they found uncomfortable. I reiterated that they were welcome to the ceremony, but acknowledged they would likely leave before the reception, which I was okay with. I even mentioned that we had a wedding fund where they could contribute at any time if they wanted to help. But deep down, this interaction left a bitter taste in my mouth. The truth is, I don't even want them at the reception. I know they'll be sitting there, uncomfortable and judging everyone. Instead of celebrating with us, they'll be silently condemning the music, the dancing, the drinks, everything that makes a wedding reception joyful. I've imagined that scenario too many times, and it fills me with dread. So here I am, torn. Did I make the right call in standing my ground and refusing my dad's $2,000? Should I even bother inviting my family to the reception when I know they'll only bring tension and judgment? Part of me wonders if I should have just disinvited them altogether, sparing myself the inevitable drama. I want my wedding day to be a celebration of love and joy, not a showcase of compromise and guilt. What would you do in my shoes? Am I selfish for prioritizing my fiancé and myself over my family's expectations? Or is this just another chapter in the long saga of trying to please people who will never be happy with anything I do? Second story. Roommate ignored parking rules for months, left her car in my spot over Thanksgiving, and I finally had enough. Now she's furious I got her towed. Living with roommates can be a balancing act, but this parking situation has pushed me to my limits. I'm 23, and I share an apartment with 3 roommates. Mia, 22, Emma, 24, and Chloe, 20. While things started off smoothly, the current parking drama has made our living arrangement downright unbearable. Let me explain. Our apartment complex used to have a decent parking setup with 2 decks, a larger main deck and a smaller secondary deck. Unfortunately, the main deck is now under construction, leaving us stuck with the cramped second deck or an alternative parking lot located 2 blocks away. When we moved in, all of us paid for parking, and I even paid extra for the last spot in the lineup to avoid the constant hassle of calling someone to move their car whenever I got home late. It felt like a small price to pay for peace of mind. Now, things have gotten messy because of how the remaining parking spots are arranged. Our apartment is assigned 4 spots, but the layout is tricky. The first 2 spots get blocked in by the last 2. This means everyone has to park strategically, especially since it's already a tight squeeze. For a while, we had a system that worked perfectly. Emma and I usually left earliest and returned the latest, so it made sense for Mia and Chloe to park in the front 2 spots, with Emma and me taking the rear. It was logical and cooperative until Chloe decided to completely disregard the plan. Chloe started parking in my designated spot instead of pulling forward into her own. At first, I thought it was just an oversight, but it quickly became a regular occurrence. Night after night, I'd return home after a long shift or class to find her car in my spot, forcing me to either call her to come downstairs and move it, always an ordeal, or park 2 blocks away and walk home in the dark. I confronted her about it several times. Each time she'd offer flimsy excuses. She was tired, she was in a hurry, or she'd be leaving again soon. I tried to be understanding, but it was becoming a major inconvenience. I explained to her that I worked 2 jobs, often getting home exhausted late at night, and that I needed access to the parking spot I'd paid for. Chloe would apologize and promise to do better, but nothing ever changed. The situation hit a boiling point when Chloe left for Thanksgiving break. She left her car parked in my spot for over a week and a half. I couldn't believe the audacity. After dealing with this for months, I finally had enough. I decided to speak with the apartment complex manager. The manager was understanding and told me that other tenants had also complained about Chloe. She wasn't just parking in my spot, she'd been using handicapped spaces and guest parking without passes and had ignored parking rules altogether. To top it off, she hadn't even paid for her parking for the month. The manager assured me that they would handle it, and I felt relieved, thinking this ordeal was finally over. The resolution came swiftly. The complex manager towed Chloe's car and revoked her parking pass. When Chloe returned from her Thanksgiving trip and found her car gone, she exploded. She accused me of trying to ruin her life, screamed at me in front of Mia and Emma, and claimed that my actions might get her evicted or even expelled from college. I tried to explain that I hadn't expected her car to be towed, I just wanted the issue addressed, but she wouldn't hear it. From that moment on, Chloe made it her mission to paint me as the villain, telling anyone who'd listen that I was the worst roommate ever and had intentionally sabotaged her. Thankfully, not everyone bought into her narrative. Both Emma and Mia agreed that I had done the right thing. They had witnessed firsthand how frustrating the situation had been and understood why I'd finally reported it. A few mutual friends sided with me as well, though others seemed to think I overreacted by involving the complex manager. Now I'm left questioning myself. Did I take it too far, or was this simply the natural consequence of Chloe's repeated disregard for the rules? I can't say I feel great about how things turned out, but I know one thing for sure. I'm done letting Chloe walk all over me, both figuratively and literally. Third story. My ex cheated, had another man's baby, and her family wants me to be the dad. But you won't believe what she did to guilt me into raising her daughter. Let me tell you about a situation that has been weighing on me for a long time. I'm a 27-year-old dad to an amazing 6-year-old son, and he's my absolute world. But things haven't been easy since I split with my ex. We were together for 4.5 years, and during that time, I thought we had something real. But life threw a curveball I wasn't prepared for, and it turned my world upside down. We broke up when my son was 2 years old. Why? Because I found out my ex had cheated on me, and to make matters worse, she was pregnant. That alone was a huge betrayal, but it got even more complicated when doubts about the baby's paternity surfaced. I felt blindsided and completely gutted. It's one thing to deal with infidelity, but the uncertainty of whether the baby she was carrying was even mine added an entirely new layer of pain. When her daughter was born, I insisted on a DNA test for both children. I needed answers and clarity before I could decide how to move forward. The results confirmed what I already felt deep down. My son was biologically mine. But her daughter? She wasn't. My ex had no idea who the father was, and she begged me to step in and raise her daughter as my own. Her reasoning? She wanted the kids to grow up together, to feel like a unified family despite the chaos she'd caused. It wasn't just her pushing this idea either. Her parents and sister also got involved, pleading with me to take on the role of father to her daughter. They said it would be best for both kids and that I should do the right thing. But how could I? I didn't create that child, and it wasn't my responsibility to fix the mess my ex had made. So I said no. Thankfully, we weren't married, which simplified things legally. I was able to get 50-50 custody of my son and focus entirely on being the best dad I could be to him. But from the moment I refused to take on her daughter, things between my ex and me soured even further. Exchanges are now short and strained. She tries to get me to interact with her daughter, but I avoid it. I've made my stance crystal clear, even going as far as documenting it through emails to keep a record of my position. I've kept it civil, but I've drawn a hard line. Recently, however, her persistence has ramped up. It's like she's determined to wear me down. The other day, she confronted me in a public place. She was emotional, saying her daughter cries every time her brother leaves after being with me. She told me her daughter wants to hug me, but holds back because she knows I wouldn't be okay with it. My ex said it breaks her heart and begged me to see her daughter as part of my family for our son's sake. She admitted she messed up but claimed her daughter was innocent in all of this. She said it was cruel to leave her daughter out when the two kids are siblings. I looked her straight in the eye and told her I don't care. I wasn't trying to be heartless, but the truth is, I didn't create her daughter, and I'm not responsible for raising her. I told her she should focus on finding her daughter's real father and stop trying to guilt me into filling that role. Not long after, her sister slid into my DMs, calling me heartless for refusing to help an innocent child. She accused me of failing as a parent and a man. Then, one of her friends chimed in, hitting me with an even angrier message, calling me misogynistic and claiming I'd only be this cold because the child is a girl. That's completely false, but the accusation stung nonetheless. I can't lie. This whole situation has left me questioning myself. Am I being cruel for standing my ground? Should I be doing more for my son's half-sister? Or am I right to prioritize my boundaries and focus solely on my son?